I called Carlos, who became my partner in the book as a coach. I said, Carlos, I need your help. We need to start to change. Walmart can lead it. And Carlos looked at me and he knew me pretty well and said, yeah, Gui, I can do that. I just have one question. Who's going to be the CEO of this new company? He said, what do you mean? I am the CEO. Yeah, but who's going to be the CEO when we transform the company? It's me, Carlos. No, you can't. You can't. Because you grew up in command and control. When you think you're right, you don't listen. And it says, so you cannot be in a much more agile company, much more digital. You're not the right guy. Yeah, but I want it. Yeah, the fact you want doesn't matter. You cannot be, unless you want to change. If you want to change, if you're willing to, and it's going to be tough, now I had to change to deserve the job that I already had.
If you're wanting to see big changes in your company, here's a question for you. Are you willing to change too? Welcome to How Leaders Lead. I'm David Novak, and every week I have conversations with the very best leaders in the world to help you become the best leader you can be. My guest today is Gui Loureiro, the chairman of Walmart Mexico, also known as Walmex. It's the leading retailer in Mexico with more than 200,000 associates and a current market cap of $60 billion. Gui has led a massive digital and cultural transformation there. And you're going to love all the stories he has to tell about it. But you're also going to see that Gui didn't just ask the company to change. He was willing to change himself too. I see a lot of leaders make big company plans, but they don't stop to think about how they personally need to change in order to lead them. But Gui does, and after this episode, you're going to be inspired to do the exact same thing if it's required. So here's my conversation with my good friend, and soon to be yours, Gui Loureiro. You know, Gui, whenever I used to have meetings at Yum Brands, I would start by doing a Yum cheer. It's like, give me a Y, give me a U, give me an M, what's that spell? And I understand you have a signature Walmart cheer. Tell us about it.
Well, that's something that our founder has created. I think he went to Korea and then he saw something and he created. And something we every day we say it, and it has meaning. So we start by give me a W, give me a A, give me a L, M-A-R-T. What does it spell? And we say Walmart. So first of all, we say the name of our company. Then we say, who does it belong to? So whose Walmart is it? It's my Walmart. So we like this ownership. We treat associates like owners. We call our people associates. And then we say, who is number one? The customer always. And then we say, who? So it has strong messages there. So it's our company. We need to act as owners, and the customer is always right.
And whenever I did the Yum cheer, there was never a time people weren't smiling. And I've given speeches yes. to different companies, and make everybody stand up when they do it, and everybody's smiling. I don't care what industry you're in, finance, technology. Everybody kind of says, I really have to do it. But when it's over, they're smiling. And speaking of smiling, you got a great smile, and you're known for your positive energy. There's this thing I understand that is associated with you. It's called the Ghee Factor. Have you heard about that?
Well, some people say I feel embarrassed to talk about it, but yeah, I did hear. I always like to be passionate about things. I love what I do, and I try to do things that I love always. And I think this passion is something that you can transmit to people. And when you link that passion with a great purpose, or a purpose to help people save money and live better, which I fully identify myself with, that can move mountains. Everything is possible when you think that what you are doing can improve people's life, and the leadership is miles at that opportunity. That can move people to go beyond what they think they can do.
Yeah. I always say positive energy lifts you up, negative energy brings you down.
Yeah.
What do you do to get your positive energy up so that you come in there every day and you've got the energy you need to have a CEO?
It always starts with our purpose. I love our purpose. And I do think the company that I work for can help people live better because we provide access. We provide access to merchandise at a price they can pay. We provide access in Mexico to internet 7 times cheaper than what the market leader does. We provide access to health, to education. So first of all, you have to identify yourself with the company you work. Second is that, have you seen this difference that makes when somebody enters a room smiling, or if you enter the room,
Yeah.
so I always believe on smiling, and I always believe on you building trust with people, and I think that, and I heard the definition. I always look for a definition what trust means. Well, of course, we all know what it means, but then I read that definition in an email that came to me. I don't know why I opened that email. There was no credit to the person who said that, but they said that trust either a company or a person. You need to be honest, reliable, and caring. And caring is a very important part of that trust. So I think that the motivation comes from building the trust, having the purpose, and loving what you do. If you love what you do, man, you do more than normal people do.
Yeah, and I love the passion that you have, but I know you also lead with a tremendous amount of intensity. Can you give me an example or tell a story about how that intensity that you have shows up in your leadership style?
So our business, if you go to a store, and the best place to go energize yourself is go to a store. Our associates, they're so good, and it's a hard work to have a. Before you work for a supermarket, you haven't got a clue how difficult it is to have a store ready for the customer, and the passion those associates have to get things. But in our business, if you have a restaurant, the store has always to be ready for the customer. And you go to a store one day is good, and you tell good things about the company. If the next day you come and it's not good, you change your mind. So if our business has to be always ready for the customer, you cannot live on the past. So we say we celebrate, we recognize, and then we move on because the store needs to be good for the next customer as well. So I think the same about business. I have a say here that say, I don't get paid to do well. I get paid to take this company to the maximum potential. But I also believe the maximum potential keeps moving up. So because we can always do better. So that moves me to be intense, very, very intense, because I always believe that we can do better than what we did in the past. So let's move on. Let's keep intensity. That's the only way to remain competitive in today's world.
So you attack the business with this daily intensity, and for a lot of people that can wear people out. I mean, it's like you're grinding, and yeah, you got a lot of positive energy and everything, but you're also focused on results and making things happen. How do you personally manage both of those as you think about your own leadership style?
Well, people need to, first of all, they need, I think that this purpose that I mentioned, you have a strong purpose as a company, and you are personally aligned with the purpose can help. So we try in our company, we say if you have our values and you like our culture, the rest we can teach you. So if you have people that are aligned in terms of purpose and culture, that makes life much, much easier to keep people motivated. Second, good results motivate a lot. People want to be successful. So, and you see the same people when you have good results, they're very motivated, they're working very hard. Then they work a little bit less, but they don't get the result. Oh my God, this is too tough. So, generating results, meaningful results, not only numbers, but meaningful results can motivate people. And you also need to know what's the limit. I have a story that marked me. My first CEO job, I was working in a CPG company in Mexico. It was my first job, and I want to succeed. And the company haven't had a good previous year. And I was trying hard to be successful, to deserve the job that I got. And I received a visit of a great mentor of mine who was about to retire. He was a British person, and he came, and I said to him, "Can you come and see us before you retire and tell me how we are doing?" And the guy came, and he was always very direct, but he didn't give me the feedback. And I was walking with him after the visit and willing to have the feedback. He was not giving me the feedback. So I said to him direct, "So what's going on? Why you don't provide me feedback?" I said, "Because I don't know how to tell you, because I'm workaholic, and you know. And so you're going to point the finger to me when I give you my feedback." So let's have a go. The guy said, "Look, you are going to succeed. You're going to do very well. It's your first job as CEO. You wanted it very much. you are doing all the right things, you are going to do great. The problem is that you are working 24 by 7. This is your dream, and I know you're not tired, and I know you're going to go for it, but you haven't asked your team if that's is their dream as well. And because you're doing this 24 by 7, you're pushing your team to do the same. This is not fair. This is your dream, not theirs. And I think I learned that thing. So you need to pause, you need to say thanks, you need to celebrate. You can be ambitious about improving the business, always improving the business, but there is a limit. And the response on that is that focus. You need to focus on the core things.
That's so true. And I remember visiting Walmart in Bentonville, Arkansas, and learning about Sam Walton and the values of the company, and they, a lot of companies say they want to beat year ago. Sam Walton said beat yesterday. So, so do you have even that kind of intensity now? Is it like beat yesterday, beat year ago? How do you think about it?
I do. It's so amazing because sometimes if you're in doubt, go to some Walton book. The answer is there. It's amazing how after so many years, decades, the book is still up to date and a lot of that. So, but I think that motivates people because if you really believe in that the customer is number one and you really want the store to be competitive and to be serving your customer, you can always do more. You can always do better. So I think that's what motivates. So I always start by our purpose, by what we want to achieve, by our customer. One thing that we changed here that has had a tremendous impact when we visit stores or when we have internal meetings, instead of talking about what we are doing, we talk about what the customer sees from what we are doing. So it doesn't matter what I'm doing. What matters is what's the customer going to see. And when you see your business from the eyes of the customer, there's always something better you can do.
Makes sense, and I can't wait to talk more about how you're leading at Walmart. But first, I want to take you back a little bit. What's a story from your childhood that shaped the kind of leader you are today?
Well, what I used to play in my house. We used to live when I was 5. So we had the house, in the back of the house, there was a place I used to call my office. And I used to go and put papers there. I couldn't read because I was not alphabetized yet. And I used
You had an office when you're 5 years old?
I have office. I call it
Come on.
I called it my office, and I played it around. But there's one story about myself. So I went to school 1 year earlier. Not because I was a very smart kid, but because my big brother, which was 11 months older than me, could not understand why he had to go to school and me not. So they put me 1 year earlier. And believe it or not, 1 year earlier made my life much more difficult. Much more difficult. Everything was more difficult. So I like to play football, what you call it soccer. And at some stage I was much smaller. So I had to fight a lot more for the things. I liked the girls, but I couldn't get the girl because they wanted older boys, etc. So I think I had to fight more for things because of that 1 year gap I had, and that made me a fighter.
Yeah, and you now live in Mexico, but as I understand it, you grew up in Brazil.
Correct.
What was life for you like growing up there, and when did you start to get this sense that leadership might be in your path? Now, you said you had an office at 5 years old, but when did you really start saying, "Hey, I think I'd like to become a leader"?
No, I was ambitious and I loved finance, so I studied business, but a lot focused on finance. I started my career in finance, and I was very technical, and I studied and Latin America has been a great school, especially for finance people, because of hyperinflation, devaluation. So there was a time inflation was 80% per month, and I was asked to move to the buying area. So I was a buyer. Imagine you buying something with 80% inflation per month, and then I start to stay closer to the business, and I reset my ambition. I said, instead of being CFO, I want to be CEO. I always look 20 years ahead. And then I start to have conversations with the company, which looked crazy because I was like 25 years old, 26. So I want to be CEO. How can I prepare myself? And one of the things that came up was leadership. So I became very much interested about learning about leadership. And I think it's something you can learn. I think the thing I most learned was to observe other leaders and get the things that I liked more about them and saying, how can I be like them? And get the things I didn't like about them and say, how can I avoid being like them in those parts? So I started to observe a lot of people because I came to the conclusion leadership was the most important thing to be CEO.
Hey everyone, it's Kula from How Leaders Lead. And if you've watched our podcast for any number of episodes, you probably know that a common theme from all of the great leaders we interview is that they are active learners. They have this commitment to continuing to learn and grow so that they don't stay stagnant and so that they continue to see success in their leadership and in their life. This theme of active learning is so important, and it's what David's latest book, How Leaders Learn, is all about. It's all about helping you develop that skill of active learning so that you too can continue to see success in your leadership and in your life. The book is really entertaining. It pulls stories from some of our greatest podcast guests and pairs those stories with insights that you can incorporate into your leadership and into your life right away. Grab How Leaders Learn on Amazon or wherever books are sold. And I think you're really going to love it. You feel David's personality through the pages and through his storytelling. And it's a really powerful way to level up your leadership.
You know, you say that leadership can be learned. And, you know, a lot of people think that leaders are born. You know, you're a born leader. How do you reconcile the difference between the born leader and the leader that learns?
Well, there's some people that are born good for certain things. I do believe some people are born, but I think most of people, they learn. I think learning is a question of being vulnerable, is a question of accepting that you can always improve, is a question of admiring others that are better than you in certain things instead of hating them or being jealous. You admire them and you try to learn from them. So I always try to absorb the most I could get from my bosses, from my peers, and from people that worked with me, and be open to change, be open to improve, be open to learn more. And I had, even when I moved to Walmart, it was late in my career. That was only 12 years ago. And I was very senior in my previous company. And at some stage, you become arrogant and you don't even notice it. And you say, look, why do I get appraisals? Why? I'm already too old and I am who I am and I have good and bad things, but I succeed with the good things I have. And then I moved to Walmart, and our CEO, one of my first meetings, he was talking, oh, I just got my appraisal and I have to improve on this. And I said, gosh, this is the biggest company in the world. And I have the CEO telling me he has to improve in certain things. Who am I to believe I've already got it? So he can learn and I can learn. So leaders can have always to learn. Even if you're born like a good leader, you still have a lot to learn in your life.
Absolutely. I want to go back to this 80% inflation. You come into this job, you got 80% inflation. You know, what did you learn about leadership having to deal with that kind of hyperinflation?
There was a waste of time because you are dealing to negotiate things instead of how to improve the business. It's tough, and you have to bring more than there was one lesson that was good. I had a trainee that came to work for me, and my team I was the main buyer of packaging materials at that time, and I had a trainee. And as a trainee, he was like, I know everything. It's my first year of work where I know everything. The guy came to me and said, look, we had a meeting. I know why you work too hard, because you're very disorganized. I said, okay, I'm very disorganized, fine. You know, you receive somebody at 5 p.m., which was already late, your main supplier, and you had to discuss price increase. And you talk to him about his family, he talked to you about this, and you guys wasted like 10, 15 minutes talking about those things before you start negotiation. And it was a waste. He said, okay, fine. So the following day, I gave that guy, the trainee, I said, look, you're going to buy the small caps I buy for the detergent, liquid detergents. You're going to buy that small caps. It was a very small part of my job. And then, but you do everything. You come to me if you need help. Fine. Then 3 weeks later, I said to him, you know, the hard soap wrapping, the plastic wrapping, you're going to buy this as well. The guy, after 2 weeks, he came to me and said, you know, Gui, let me tell you something. I don't think you are disorganized. I've got enough. And don't give me anything more because I'm very, very busy. And the lesson there were two lessons. One is that when you have any negotiation, especially if you have this type of negotiation, you have to go back every month. You need to create trust, and sometimes you invest a little bit more time to show people that you care about them, that you may be a supplier and customer relationship, but you care. You care about the success of their company. You care about themselves. You create a bond people trust. Because a lot of the times during that time, we had to continue receiving the supply without having agreed the price. And people trusted me, so they would continue to supply, then we would agree the price later, because it was never easy. And we sometimes didn't have the authority because the price increases were so high. He had to go back, or she had to go back and consult their boss. I had to go back and consult my bosses. So sometimes things that less experienced people see as a waste of time, you build those relationships. And even when there are tough discussions about price increase, etc., the company could go bankrupt if they had a bad negotiation. If you build the trust, then you have good negotiations. And you can never win all the time. You don't build the trust if you want to win all the time. So I think I learned a lot about negotiation, a lot about how to build that trust that created me the opportunities later in my career. I was head of mergers and acquisitions to do negotiations that looked impossible because I learned at very young stage of my career to build the trust doing a negotiation.
It's interesting. One of the things I learned at Walmart from Sam Walton was that no one will care about you until they know that you care about them. And that's basically what you're saying there,
Exactly.
And you were promoted when you were at Unilever's to the global headquarters in the UK. And you've called that one of your toughest stretches of your career. Tell us the story and why it was such a pivotal point in your development as a leader.
There were 2 points. So the first time I moved to the UK, I realized when I arrived that I couldn't speak English. I went to sue my English school because I thought I could speak, but when you arrive there, and that was tough. And I got a mental blockage and took me long time to get rid. And I think it created this psychological block. So how can you work if you don't understand the language? And I learned that I should have raised my hand well before, and maybe I should have gone to an intensive course, but I wanted to prove myself. I think I was hiding that deficiency. I was not hiding anything. Everybody knew it. So that was a very tough moment. But the second one was, you get a big promotion. I was much more senior, much more experienced, and then I started to suffer. I started to suffer anxiety and the problem was me. I want to prove myself that I deserved the opportunity. I thought I had to prove others, but I was trying to prove myself. And then you start to suffer anxiety, a lot of anxiety. When anxiety, some level of anxiety is good, a lot of anxiety is very bad. So I suffered a lot. And the problem was myself with myself. Till the moment I just relaxed. And when you relax, you just move on and you do your job. We always go through those things. The best thing is to share with more experienced people. Instead of hiding, share it. Share your difficulties. And they will help you.
Yeah, another job you had at Unilever was that you were head of strategy. And, what'd you learn about, cutting through all the complexity that's out there and keeping strategy simple so that people can really rally around it and execute it, make it happen?
First is to focus. The most important part of the strategy is not necessarily what you're going to do, is what you're not going to do. And we tend to discuss what we're going to do, and we tend not to discuss what we are not going to do. And then the organization continues to do things, and they just add things on top of what they're doing. So I learned how to say no to certain parts. And if you focus, you will succeed. So focusing was one. The second was this part about thinking long term and defining what company you want to be. And I had learned from a professor of mine years before, but I used it more when I was the strategy person. There are companies that they do well, and when they plan the future, they say, I want to continue to do well. I'm happy with my performance. And that company is a slave of their past, because the biggest component of their future is their past, because they just say, I'm happy with what I have. I'll continue to deliver that. Other companies improve a little bit and say, yeah, but we can always improve a little bit. So let's improve. That company is still a slave of the past because they're trying to fix the past and improve a little bit certain things. There are companies that think 10 years in advance, who 10, 20 years, say, what's the company want to be in 10 years? And then they come future back and they decide what they have to do in order to be that thing. And I use that both for a company, but also for my personal career. And how can I develop? And also for the people that I mentor on their career. Have you noticed that when people come to talk to you about a career, and if they have half an hour, they spend 28 minutes telling you what they did in the past. And then they ask you, what do you think about next job? Is this a good job for me? And I always tell them, I don't know. Because if I don't know where you want to go, you can take any bus. So if people come to you and say, this is what I want to be in 10 years, and what do I need to get there? And then this job fits with what I need in 10 years' time is a much better discussion. The same for the company. So I learned about this thing about thinking long term and then building that long term. And if you do that, anything is possible.
And you were at a great company, Unilever. I mean, you did extremely well, and then you moved to Walmart. I like to get in the heads of how people make decisions. What was it about that opportunity that made you say yes?
There were two things. First was a very unfortunate thing. I left Unilever because there was a huge disagreement about future. So I was CEO, was a successful CEO. I want to go back to CEO. And some bosses want me to go back to finance because they needed me in finance. And I was a good finance person. And I had to take a decision about getting a senior job, the most senior job in finance, or be a happy person. And I decided to be happy. And I think that if you do what you like, you're going to do it well. And that opportunity was no longer available for me at Unilever. Then I had to change. And Walmart, since I was CEO for Unilever in Mexico, Walmart was trying to convince me to join Walmart. And at that time, I decided to leave. They approached me at that time, and they made me a big offer, which was, I want to go back to Brazil because family reasons. They said to me, okay, we can train you. So they made an offer, a CEO package without a job, and with an offer to be trained, because a lot of people fail when they move from CPGs to retail. Retail is a lot different. So they offered me to train me. But I look at 10 years in advance and I said, what do I want to do in 10 years' time? And I said, in 10 years' time, I'm going to approach in retirement. And maybe I want to do boards, or maybe I want to do this. And the experience at Walmart from the other side of the table, the continue to be CEO would give me the capabilities and experiences to be what I wanted to be in 10 years. So there was a fit. There was a big risk. It was going to be much safer if I moved to another CPG company. But I was 45. I said, I can take the risk. And I don't regret. I own a lot to Unilever. I learned a lot. I love the company. I have so many friends there. But the 12 years at Walmart have been great as well.
Yeah, fantastic. And Walmart is one of the largest and most influential retailers in the world by far. And what's something that Walmart does better than any other retailer on the planet?
Well, we have everyday low price philosophy. So we believe that we can do we can be a better service to our customers if we negotiate and we implement a price policy that is the lowest possible price ever, trying to do much less promotions. Because a promotion, you reduce your price, but that's temporary. Sometimes it's not at the time the customer wants to buy that thing and the customer feels forced to buy that thing at the time you lower the price. But then you have to compensate it having higher prices, either in other merchandise or in that merchandise. So we think you cannot say customer is number one if you push them to buy things not at the right time for them. So everyday low price tries to put the price, the best possible price every day and maintain them constant. So you buy whenever you want, the quantity you want, and you can trust that when you come to our store, you can pay the lowest price. And I think that's very unique to Walmart, and we take it very seriously. And then that creates trust. I told you about the definition of trust. You need to be honest, reliable, and caring. If you come to a place that you know that tries to give you the lowest possible price and don't mislead you with fake promotions, It's honest, it's reliable, and it's caring because we try to give you the best.
Walmart calls its employees associates, and I know that's more than just a label. How do you create a culture where people feel like they belong and that their work, no matter what they do in the company, it really matters?
Our founder has always listened to associates a lot. And that's the best way to prove on a daily basis that they matter. So if you come to a store and you try to lecture people, you're not being respectful to them. You need to come to the store because they see the customer every day. Everything good or bad that we do in our offices ends up at the store. But it's the store person who has to face the customer. So when you walk with your notepad and you talk to a store associate and you take notes, they feel valued. If you take action from that notes, even better. They feel valued a lot. So, give you an example. When I came to CEO here in Mexico, and I used to go to a store, people would call me Sir Gui, whatever. No, and I said, don't, because I'm just playing a role here. And if you tell me Gui instead of Sir, you're going to feel better to tell me the truth. And what I want is for you to, your opinion matters. And we take it very seriously. And we have things like open doors, which is you can come to the office of the CEO anytime and you can say what's going on. You have full access to people. And we need to show that we have rules like the 3 meters rule. I have to say hello, how are you, customers, to associates. We try to respond. It's becoming difficult. But you have the sunset rule. If you ask me something, I'd better give you an answer the same day. Even if the answer is that, Dave, I know you want this, you asked me, it's going to take 2 days for me to get the answer to you. You know I care about what you asked, you know I care about providing you a response. So there are very small things that we do every day that are part of our culture that show that we value you, we value your contribution. And the other thing is that you look at our CEO, he started in a warehouse and then you grow. So we say you have the opportunity, you go as far as you want. And we'll provide you the opportunity to grow within the company. So I think those things together, they make the company as we are, and we provide this to our associates.
And you said that you really need to see the business or at the stores from the customer's eyes. And here you are. You're CEO. You're overseeing 8 different countries. How do you personally get connected to the front lines and listen to customers and understand the behaviors and where there are widely different cultures in every country?
You need to go out, visit the countries. I cannot do my job from my comfortable seat. So I travel a lot. My wife will tell you I travel a lot. You go and you talk to people. And you go and you show respect, and you go and you take action from what you talk. So you visit stores in every country where we go. I try to talk to as many people as possible. And then you need to have a very organized agenda so you can talk to the people, you can talk to the right people that you need to talk, and you can have open space to receive other people. When you respect what people say, they come more to you and they tell you more. And so if they feel respected, they will come back. If they don't feel respected, they will hide things from you. So what we try to keep is this openness and this respectful culture where people are going to say, so I spend most of my time talking to people, and then I can make my decisions faster and better. And the second thing that I do a lot of mistakes every day. The sooner you recognize your mistakes, the sooner the better, and people will look at you as a human being that also make mistakes, recognize and move on. So you create this trust with them.
We'll be back with the rest of my conversation with Gui in just a moment. You can hear how Gui's focus on the future really guides him as a leader. And it reminds me of this terrific insight from HubSpot CEO, Yamini Rangan, who also talks about the importance of starting with the future when you're trying to define your career path.
What is the future that I want to help create as a leader? One of the lessons that I have learned as a leader is not to focus on the past and where you're coming from, but really focus on the future and work backwards. I had to make that choice, David, because I could be sitting there and I could be thinking about what shoes am I filling? How am I going to get this role, to be where it needs to be? And do I have the capability, the credibility to be able to lead this company? But that's not where I started. I made a choice and I thought about 2030 and where HubSpot can be as a company and what would be my role in getting the organization to where it needed to be in the next decade, and what would a great leader do, and how could I be the part of that journey. So I started in the future, and then the answer became clear. I wanted to be the best CEO that the company and the employees and the customers deserved. Not where I was coming from, but where it needed to be in the future. And so working backwards from the future really helped create a vision for where I can go with this company.
Go back and learn from my entire conversation with Yamini, episode 161, here on How Leaders Lead. At Walmex, you were serving a customer base in Mexico and Central America where most people preferred cash and didn't have, bank accounts and didn't trust buying online.
Yeah.
Not easy. Now, what advice can you give to leaders about meeting customers and where they're at and building your strategy based off of that?
I used to receive the visit of my bosses, and they would ask, why back in 2016, 17, why e-commerce is not growing in Mexico? And we have the answer ready. Well, Mexico internet is very expensive, so people don't have a full access to our customers. They don't have access to internet all the time. They buy 1 week, they get prepaid cards. They buy 1 week, then they stay some weeks without. And also they don't have bank accounts, so they cannot pay online. So they don't trust, they don't, and their standard will show data to reinforce the idea. And one day, as we were transforming the company, we said, look, if we see things from the customer point of view, that's not the way we are acting regarding e-commerce. Because if they have those limitations, how can we serve them? And it's funny because I have a friend who says, interesting that the harder I work, the luckier I get. As we start to think about that, there was an opportunity for us to launch our own internet plan, phone and internet. And we launched it 7 times cheaper than the leader. So the same way that our founders 60 plus years ago offer access to goods at a price people could pay, we offer access to internet. By offering that access, we open the benefits of the digital economy to our customers. They now can have internet all the time. When we did that, we came to another conclusion, which was, well, now let's help them to get the thing. So we now offer help. We offer high school, the whole high school. You can do in 5 months online in a top school in Mexico, paying $100. So we provide access to people to things. Technology allows you to think bigger and to provide access to things. So the moment you think about your customer, you will go for solutions. You don't go for explanations about why you are not doing. You go, wow, I have to find a solution.
So you really created a digital revolution in Mexico, and I understand you introduced in-store kiosks where customers could browse digitally. Tell us about that and how you came to that, and then how you really drove it into the organization, because you were basically old school. Now you're becoming new school in a hurry.
That's a proof that the CEO doesn't know everything, and thanks God, certain things happen without the CEO knowing. So I have nothing to do with the kiosk. So somebody invented the kiosk because that person was thinking about the customer. So when I got to know, I said, explain to me, everybody in the whole world is moving to buy from a phone. And we at Walmex, we created this physical kiosk in a store with a salesperson and a computer that the customer comes and buying that kiosk. I thought was the most stupid idea. And I was wrong, as a lot of the time I am. Because what happened is that that person that created thought about solving a customer pain problems. So they said the customer doesn't buy because they don't have internet, because they don't have a payment method, and they don't trust. Because if they get wrong, or if they buy something and they buy from the wrong site and the things never get delivered to them, they don't have money to go and buy again. My customer cannot get it wrong. And by putting a kiosk inside the store where the customer would go there, see the things, be helped by a salesperson, buy and pay cash at the store, and if something goes wrong, they will go back to the store. It was a brilliant solution that I would probably think 10 times before approving it. Thanks God I didn't approve it. Didn't come to me for approval. They implemented it, and it went very well, very well. So we have more than 1,000 of those kiosks today, still serving our people. Over time, they are going to migrate to buying from their phone as they trust. As we give them internet at a price they can pay, they will, and a wallet, they will be able to migrate. But we're a creative solution from somebody that had the customer on their mind. It was not me. I would love to be the person who did it, but it was not me.
Well, you've orchestrated a major transformation at Walmex, and you've now captured a lot of that journey in your new book. It's called Reinventing the Leader. What made you want to put this story into words?
The first idea I had was, how can I transmit to my kids everything I learned during my career? I started with that. And then I went to a hotel with my wife and like the middle of nowhere, and I started to write. Then I had heard that one of the things we should do in life is to say thanks to people that helped us. So I said, okay, all the stories I want to tell my kids, I learned from somebody else. So I will also take the opportunity and start to phone people and say, thank you. I remember that. And then I had a coach that had done a couple of work with me. And I came, don't you want to, Carlos Marin, great coach. I said, Carlos, do you want to write a chapter? And Carlos started to work with me and they started to write a book. And he had the same intentions that I had. And then when we wrote it, we said, why don't we publish it? And then we start to get to know the publisher. We said, nobody writes a book. You write an idea and you sell it. And if somebody buys it, you write a book. We had already had the book. And it's a great way to tell the story. It's a great way to say thanks to many people that taught things to you. And it's a great pleasure to see it. It's going to be released this week.
Well, good. Congratulations on that. And you've said that you could transform a company, but you have to transform yourself first.
Yeah.
What was the moment that made you realize that you had to transform yourself first?
I arrived at Walmex and we have had a great year. This company is very successful, has been successful for decades. It was not successful because I was the CEO. And because we were, as a country, we were late on the digital space, we could see what was happening in the US, in Asia, and we could see that we didn't need a brilliant guy to see that was coming to Mexico. So I started to think about how can we move this company to the digital era. I called Carlos, who became my partner in the book as a coach. I said, Carlos, I need your help because I need to convince my executive committee that despite the fact we are doing very well, and despite the fact Mexico is late in the digital moves, we need to start to change. Walmart can lead it. And I explained to him, and I said, can you help me to convince my executive committee that we need to take the risk and we need to move first? Because they're going to tell us why to move if we're doing pretty well. And Carlos looked at me and he knew me pretty well and said, yeah, Gui, I can do that. I just have one question. Who's going to be the CEO of this new company? He said, what do you mean? I am the CEO. Yeah, but who's going to be the CEO when we transform the company? And it's me, Carlos. No, you can't. And he was blunt. You can't. Because you grew up in command and control. When you think you're right, you don't listen. And it says, so you cannot be in a much more agile company, much more digital. You're not the right guy. Yeah, but I want it. Yeah, the fact you want doesn't matter. You cannot be. Then the conversation voice said, unless you want to change. If you want to change, if you're willing to, and it's going to be tough, And then we did a plan about how I could change. And that's the origin of the book as well, to tell the story about how I changed it, how I had to change to deserve the job that I already had.
That's great. And you write a lot about trust, moving away from that command and control towards autonomy and ownership. When did you learn, or how did you learn that you needed to let go? And how do you decide when to let go?
It's funny because we start to look at the digital native companies, and we said they are solving problems, our customers' problems, faster than us and better. And it's going to come to Mexico. And then we start to say, okay, we need to be more digital. We need to have more data and get insights from those data. But if you have more data and you have more insights, what do we do with those insights? How do we implement things? Okay, so we choose the agile methodology to help us to identify customer pain points, to identify solutions, to implement it. This requires you to have multidisciplinary teams that see things end to end and solve customer pain points in a much faster way than in the past. When I started to grow up, the research area would identify the problem, would pass it to the marketing and to the technical experience. They would develop a product, then it would test in the market. Then after 10 years, you would have it delivered to the customer. And we were always trying to have a perfect product. Then what we notice in the newcomers that they don't have a perfect problem. Every time they launch a new phone, it comes with bugs. And then we help them to fix it. But there's one condition: the product has to be better than the previous one. So I said, and we wait till the perfect product, so it takes too long. I said, okay, the only way is that you create those multidisciplinary teams and you give them freedom. So the leadership keeps setting the what, where we're going to take the company, what. But those teams, they decide the how themselves. And I was inspired by that book, Team of Teams. It's inspiring me. Sometimes, because they need my approval, we delay a decision by weeks or months. And 99%, if you have a good team, 99% of the time you're going to approve it anyway. So why to do that? But if you grew up in command and control, the time you have the command, you release it, it's tough. So we said the only way it's going to work is that. So if I am a customer-centric person, and if I want to succeed, and the condition to succeed in this current world is that, I have to change. So let's move. But it was not easy. And how many meetings we went that we did it wrong. But we stated clear to people saying, this is the way we want to run the company. We are going to get wrong sometimes. You raise your hand and say, you are not doing what you said you were going to do. And people start to request us to behave the way we said we would behave. And so there was constant feedback, and we end up training a lot. We're not perfect, but we end up training a lot.
And you also said something that I love. We must perform to transform. That's a nice little rhyme, but what do you do as a leader to take care of that first part, to really drive results, the performance part?
So there were two people that influenced me. One was that a boss that I had, Vinicius Priant, that I had in Brazil, and I learned a lot from him, and I still do. He kept saying to me in the past, look, if you deliver your targets, you have freedom to do your way. And I saw it happen. So I always had this, when I become CEO, I'm going to deliver, so I'm going to do it my way. And then I had a friend who came to me and said, he had just taken over the CEO job of a global multinational company. And he said, my predecessor was trying to transform the company in order to perform. He lost his job. I have to perform so I can transform. And I perfectly said, I have to, in the case situation we were, I had to perform in order to transform, and I had to transform in order to continue to perform. Because if we didn't transform the company, and it happened because when I started to implement those agile methodologies, all those changes that we're doing, somebody in the head office told me, no, you are wasting your time because you are developing it from the center of the company. So you stop duplicating the expenditure. And then I talked to my boss said, you have good results. You have a little bit of time and you want desperate to do it, go ahead. You have my permission to go ahead. Then that thing works. So I only got permission to go ahead and duplicate. But the people that in head office that were doing it, they came later to see us here and to learn from what we were doing because it never developed it.
You bring up a good point. There's always tension between, divisions and companies and the head office. The head office is always driving centralization and saying we've got people working on it. And a lot of times you're out there and you're a piece of Walmart and you're waiting and it's not coming. How do you decide when you say, okay, I'm gonna let headquarters do that versus I'm gonna do it?
I think I benefit from the fact that I have done operational jobs in my life, but I also have worked a lot in the head office. So I learned to appreciate what head office does and to value a lot what they do, but also to learn how to deal with that. So I think that if you have transparency, cooperation, this can work. But also, if you deliver results, nobody's going to stop you. And I remember one day at Unilever, we were having difficult times and we were having a discussion. And I was the younger person in that team, was the finance leadership team. And people were complaining. Everybody knew the solution. I said, I can't remember. I said to them, looks like you all have. I was not very popular that day, but they were all my bosses in previous jobs, etc. So I said to them, look, it looks like we all have the solution. Why don't we do it? Because I tell you, in my whole career, I have almost 40 years of career. I can't remember any time people stopped me. But I can remember many times hiding behind the excuse, oh, I don't have permission to do things. It's not true. Most of the times you do have permission. Go for it. And if you have good results, you have double permission to do it and to try.
I love it. And this has been so much fun, Guy. And I want to have some more with what I call my lightning round of questions. Now, are you ready for this?
Yeah, I'm ready for this.
What 3 words best describe you?
Oh, that's easy because I did I like to live with intensity. I love with intensity. And I like to cause impact, to impact people and business.
If you could be one person for a day besides yourself, who would it be?
My father.
What's your biggest pet peeve?
If you mistreat people.
Who would play you in a movie?
Oh my God, Rin Tin Tin.
What's something only a CEO knows about Walmart?
We are a much greater company than people believe.
You get 2 front row tickets to do anything you want. Where are you going and who are you taking with you?
I'm going to watch my team winning the World Championship, São Paulo Football Club in Brazil, and I will take my kid who supports the team as well.
What's the one thing that you do just for you?
Swimming.
Besides your family, what is your most prized possession?
Friends.
If I turned on the radio in your car, what would I hear?
Football.
What's something about you few people would know?
I'm shy. I don't look like what I am.
What's one of your daily rituals, something that you never miss?
Well, I start to meditate and I never miss meditation.
I'm trying to get into that myself. I'm doing it. It's interesting.
I wish I had started much well.
So why do you think meditation is something that every leader should do?
Because it reduces your anxiety, it reduces the fear, and it brings you to the present.
Great. Well, we're out of the lightning round, and thanks for enlightening us on that. What's your favorite spiritual growth book?
Spiritual growth book. It's not that spiritual, but similar, which is The Psychology of Money.
All right, great. You're leading more than 200,000 associates across 8 countries, and you're also a husband and a dad. You said that you just talked about how much you loved your wife. How do you juggle all of that and still show up the way you do?
It's more important the quality of the time you spend with people than the quantity of time. So I try to spend real time with people, my family, and my friends, and people at work.
What have you learned at home that's helped you become a better leader?
Well, there were a couple of things that I mentioned in the book, but there was one that my wife, I was upset. Despite the fact that everything I defend in the book and I tried to implement during the transformation, I was upset with somebody couldn't agree with me something. I was trying hard, and some people couldn't agree about the transformation. And I came home very upset. And my wife said to me, "You're very arrogant." And I said, "How? I don't think I am arrogant. Why is my wife telling me I'm arrogant?" I said, "Not even Jesus Christ managed to get everybody to agree with him. Why do you think you're going to?" And some people disagree with you. That's good. That was a great lesson.
So, Guy, what do you see as your unfinished business now? You've accomplished so much in life.
Well, people say that you finish when you give back. So I think that once I retire, I'm going to push it. How can I give back? I got a lot. How can I give back?
And last question, what's one piece of advice you'd give to anyone who wants to be a better leader?
Caring. You need to, people follow you if they feel you, not if you are intelligent, you have all the solutions, but if they feel you care.
Well, thank you very much, Guy. It's been a great conversation. I appreciate you taking the time, and good luck with your new book.
Thank you very much. Great to have the opportunity to talk with you.
You know, Guy's got that rare combination of intense drive and genuine humility. There's no doubt about it. He's an ambitious guy, and he loves getting results for his company. But he's also reflective and honest and vulnerable about what he needs to do to improve himself. I'm telling you, it takes real guts to look in the mirror and realize that the leadership style that's made you successful so far might not get you to where you want to go next. If you want to see big change and growth in your team, you've also got to stop and ask what big changes you need to make personally and what your plan of growth is, because you can't transform your company unless you're willing to transform yourself. I've already ordered a copy of Guy's new book, Reinventing the Leader, and I hope you will too. There's just so much we can all learn from the way he leads. But in the meantime, here's something to think about. What's one aspect of your leadership style that might need to evolve to meet the moment that you're in? Is it how you delegate? Is it a skill that you need to pick up? Is it how you listen? Is it how you show up for your people? Well, whatever it is, be honest with yourself and commit to making that change. So do you want to know how leaders lead? What we learned today is that great leaders know that they have to transform themselves in order to transform their businesses. Coming up next on How Leaders Lead is Steve Case, the co-founder of AOL and the chairman and CEO of Revolution, a venture capital firm based out of Washington, D.C. So be sure you subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss it. Thanks again for tuning in to another episode of How Leaders Lead, where every Thursday you get to listen in while I interview some of the very best leaders in the world. I make it a point to give you something simple on each and every episode that you can apply to your business so that you will become the best leader you can be.